Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Night unrolls like a length of deep silk, and the village lamps soften to quiet amber. Along the riverbank, a boy named Aaron tilts a brass bowl to catch the sky. He has polished it with ash and sand until the surface shines like still water. When he holds it beneath the moon, the bowl becomes a second, smaller night, patient, unblinking, and ready to listen. Aaron is a watcher of quiet things, the way reeds sway when distant oars disturb the water. The single bell that rings once at the temple's closing and again only in the heart. The thin white path the moon draws across fields sleeping under dew. He comes to the river when others sleep because the river does not hurry him. It accepts each question and returns it as a ripple that takes its time to arrive. Tonight the moon rises full, bright as a blessing. Dogs cease their arguments. Mango leaves still their chittering. Even the crickets hush long enough to consider what light can mean when it lays its palm upon the world. In the temple on the hill, lamps line the steps like a procession of patient stars. Below, the river bends into a silver question mark. The wind smells of warm stone and night jasmine. On the far bank a flute begins a simple phrase, and the phrase circles back upon itself like a charm against forgetting. Aaron lowers the brass bowl until it mirrors the moon. His grandmother taught him this. If you want to remember a night, let it look at itself. He has done this for many nights, and each one has kept its face in the bowl's memory. But tonight, something in the moon's gaze flickers, so faint he almost doubts it. Its edge softens. A thread of shadow touches the rim as if some hidden eyelid is preparing to blink. He holds his breath. The brass bowl trembles, not from his hands, but from a quiet that grows heavier, as when a story leans forward to tell the part that matters. The shadow deepens. A single star dims, then brightens as if light must pass through a veil before it can be seen. The flute on the far bank pauses mid-phrase. Somewhere above the temple steps, a priestess lifts her head and hears the drift of silence as it gathers its cloak. Aaron whispers the word his grandmother taught him, Greyhan, eclipse. He has heard it told in the courtyard late at night that there is a being who drinks light, not from malice alone, but from a hunger so old it remembers when the sky was not divided into day and night but was only a great ocean where fire and shadow swam together. The elders pronounce the name carefully because names are doors, and some doors open in both directions. Rahu. The syllables carry like oars against still water. Somewhere an owlet calls twice, the second time lower, as if the night itself has shifted its key. Aaron watches the bowl. The moon's round face has begun to wear a crescent of darkness. It is not a bite, he thinks, though he has heard that word used. It is a sip. Someone is tasting light. He does not run to wake the village. He does not cry out. He listens because that is his way. The river listens with him. Together they feel a current in the air that is not wind, the soft, deliberate drawing in of something vast. A low rhythm begins beneath all other sounds, the turning of unseen wheels, the slow heartbeat of a mouth older than stars learning once more to drink. Aaron finds that his own pulse has matched it without asking permission. He thinks of his grandmother's stories, and the one she told only once, her voice almost a whisper, of a banquet in the sky, a nectar of immortality, a serpent of great mind and greater appetite, a trick, a sip, a severing, and a head that learned to live by hunger alone. Clouds thin across the moon's bright field. On the temple hill, brass gongs wait with their mouths closed. In courtyards, sleeping crows shift claws on their perches. The river becomes a darker ribbon. "Do you hear me?" Aaron says, not loudly, not expecting an answer. He speaks into the bowl, and the bowl speaks to the sky the way a well speaks to the rain that fills it. Something answers, not in words, but in a coolness that touches the space just above his brow, where dreams choose their doors. He is not afraid. The coolness feels like fingers dipped in night water pressed gently to his skin, blessing and question at once. "Come," says a thought that might be his own and might not. "If you would watch, then watch from where the watching began." The river trembles. The path of moonlight on its surface narrows to a pale thread, then a pale bead, then nothing at all. Yet the thread still exists in the feeling of it. The brass bowl fills with a darkness that is not empty. It is expectant, like a theater just before the curtain rises. Aaron closes his eyes because sight has done its part. He does not fall asleep. He steps sideways, without movement, without effort, into a room that was always next to the one he knew. The room is vast. It has no walls, only horizons. Its ceiling is the slow migration of constellations. Its floor is the long breath of oceans that have not yet learned what shores are. At the center hangs a circle of light more real than the moon he has ever seen. Not brighter, but truer, as a name is truer than a nickname when spoken by the one who first gave it. The light shivers. A shadow approaches, not as smoke, not as cloud, but as intention, clothed in the color of old ink and cool caves. It is shaped like a head without a body, and yet it is not grotesque. It is ancient, and its age wears the dignity of mountains. Around it, faint ringlets of stardust turn as if caught in the wake of breathing. Rahu, Aaron thinks, and the name does not echo. It lands and is accepted like a bowl set carefully on stone. The shadow turns. Does a shadow turn? And faces him without eyes. It regards him as a mountain regards a bird, with care not to unmake what it sees by seeing it too strongly. "You came," says a voice that is vibration rather than sound. It arrives inside Aaron's chest and in the soft bones at the base of his ears. "You bring a bowl." Aaron looks down. The brass bowl is still in his hands, though he cannot say when he brought it. Its surface, which once mirrored the moon, now holds the circle of truer light from this room between worlds. He lifts it, offering without offering, because he does not know the custom here. Rahu leans, or perhaps the light moves. The circle in the bowl ripples as if a breeze had troubled it, though there is no breeze, only breath that knows itself. The shadow's edge sharpens, then softens, then accepts the bowl's reflection as if it were a flavor. "You are the eater," Aaron says. Not accusation, not praise, only truth placed on the table between them. I am the taster, says Rahu. I taste what will end and what will not. Light ends, faces end, names end. The sip does not. The circle above them dims by a finger's width. Somewhere far away, the temple, the river, the fields, the world shivers as the moon's bright coin learns humility again. Why? Aaron asks, because questions belong to him as breath belongs to ribs. Why must you drink? Rahu does not bristle. It is difficult to imagine such a being bristling. Because once I tasted what is not meant to be owned. The voice replies, slow as a lesson. Because I crossed a boundary and found that even a boundary can be sweet. Because a mouth once opened does not close without learning what hunger is for. Aaron thinks of the story, of the gods and demons churning the cosmic ocean, of the nectar born from that labor, of the trick that gave it to some and denied it to others. He hears again the whisper of the one who slipped in among the gods, tasted immortality, and was found out by a sun and a moon who told the truth. He remembers the blade, the severing, and the head that remained to wander the sky in search of what it could never completely keep. You are angry with them, Aaron says, surprised at his own boldness. Rahu's edge cools. I am older than one anger. The voice says, not unkindly. I am a lesson left on the blackboard after the class is gone. A taste that returns to the tongue in quiet moments so that a promise will be kept. What promise? That light will not become pride. Silence spreads around them. Not empty, but clean, as a courtyard washed before dawn. Aaron realizes that the darkness does not conceal. It reveals the shape of light by teaching it to be humble. The circle brightens again, gradual as forgiveness. You frighten them, Aaron says, thinking of grandmothers and children and birds that go still when dark touches the moon. I remind them, Rahu answers. I remind the sky to breathe. The bowl in Aaron's hands hums, and he feels the river moving far below, pulled by a tide that does not belong to water alone. He thinks of his grandmother humming as she kneaded dough, the way the song measured each fold so that bread would rise kindly. Perhaps the sky also requires a measure. Perhaps the eclipse is that measure, counting the distance between desire and enough. What should I do? He asks, surprising himself again. When you drink next, when shadow goes over the moon, the darkness leans closer, and for the first time Aaron feels cold. Not painful, not unfriendly, but clarifying. The way a clear morning makes a mind remember what it meant to do. Do as the river does, says Rahu. Hold without owning. Reflect without devouring. When fear circles your village, be the bowl. The bowl, Aaron repeats, and the brass sings a thin, true note. Also, the voice adds, gentler than before. Remember that not all hunger is a wound. Some hunger is a compass. It points to the boundary you must not cross, and to the promise you must keep. The circle above brightens once more. Somewhere far away, drums begin, not in alarm, but in tempo steady and low. The river hears and matches. The crickets return, shy at first, then brave. A dog sighs and sleeps deeper. Rahu draws back. I have tasted enough. the voice says. Tell your moon I will taste again, and again, until light remembers how to bow without breaking. Aaron nods and realizes he has not once thought to be afraid. The bowl feels heavier now, but it is a good weight, the kind that keeps a thing from blowing away. How will I return? He asks, because the world of lamps and reeds and kitchen ash is dear to him. As you came, answers Rahu. By listening. The room between worlds does not close. It deepens until it is the space inside a breath. Aaron exhales and the river receives him. He stands once more by the bank, the brass bowl in his hands, the moon above wearing the last thin veil of shadow. The flute on the far shore finds its phrase and finishes it with a quiet that feels like gratitude. On the temple hill, a single gong taps, not to scare away a demon, but to greet a lesson. Aaron looks into the bowl. The moon looks back, smaller, calmer, not diminished but moderated. He touches the bowl's rim with one finger and whispers, I will be the bowl. The river accepts the vow the way water accepts a stone, with rings that move outward long after the stone has gone to the bottom. Above him, the moon steps free of shadow. Around him, the village breathes. And somewhere beyond, in the long corridors where light and dark practice their steps, a shadow that has learned its name moves on, not finished and not beginning, only continuing the work of teaching brightness how to kneel without fear. The night remains. The story is not over. The hunger is not a monster but a map. And Aaron, watcher of quiet things, sits at the river's edge and listens until listening becomes sleep. The night has lifted, but the dream remains. In Aaron's sleep, the river becomes an ocean, and every ripple grows into a wave that carries him back through the folds of time. Back to when the world was still half born, and the sky was a sea of milk that waited to be stirred. It is said that before the gods were gods, and before the demons had learned their names, there was only longing. The kind that stretches from the first breath of creation toward its own reflection. And in that longing, a promise was made, that light and darkness would share the same hunger, to taste eternity. Aaron drifts in the dream like a feather above an ancient ocean. The waves below do not crash. They breathe. Each swell glows with a milky radiance that hides the seeds of stars. Upon those luminous waters stand two great hosts, the Devas, children of light, and the Asuras, born of shadow. Between them, a mountain rises, turning slow and deep, its peak lost in cloud, its base lost in the sea. This was the churning of the ocean, the Samudra Manthan. At the summit of the mountain sits the serpent Vasuki, vast as night itself, coiling around the cosmic pillar. His body bridges both camps. Gods at his tail, demons at his head, and together they pull. They pull not in harmony, but in need. The sea groans. The world shakes. Stars scatter like embers from a divine forge. Beneath, the milk ocean begins to stir. Layers of cloud and vapor swirl into the shape of galaxies. From the froth, treasures are born. The cow of plenty, the wish-granting tree, the goddess of beauty rising from foam, the moon itself. But none of these matter to the two great hosts, for what they seek lies still deeper. Amrita, the nectar of immortality. When at last the pot appears, glowing gold and alive with its own pulse, silence falls over the sea. Even the wind forgets its route. The nectar hums softly, a heartbeat that promises never to stop. Vishnu, the preserver, steps forward, radiant, calm, infinite in patience. He takes the pot and raises it high. The nectar will be shared, he says, but order must be kept. The Asuras murmur. Their eyes gleam like coals under wet ash. Among them stands one who does not murmur, one whose gaze is steady as the dark between stars. Rahu. He was not yet called Rahu. His name was Svarbhanu then. A scholar among demons, curious, quiet, and full of questions the gods never liked to answer. He studied the movement of planets, the rhythm of light, the hidden breath behind all things. He did not thirst for war. He thirsted for knowing. But knowledge can also become a kind of hunger. He watches Vishnu pour the nectar into cups of gold for the gods first. He sees how the light touches their lips and deepens their radiance. He feels the promise of that eternal warmth, the taste that would end all fear, and something inside him, older than envy, older than self, awakens. He steps forward, his form shimmering, bending light like heat. With a single thought he changes. His shape melts and reforms. When he rises, he wears the face of a god. His voice carries the calm tone of trust. None notice the exchange, for the hunger in their own hearts blinds them more than illusion ever could. Vishnu nods at him, unknowing. Drink, son of light. And so he does. The nectar touches his tongue, and the world stops breathing. Every star flares, every wave stands still. For a heartbeat, Svarbhanu feels what it means to be endless. He feels the pulse of suns in his blood. He feels the breath of eternity moving through his bones. He becomes, for that instant, the balance of all things, not God, not demon, but the space between them. And then the eyes of truth find him. From opposite ends of the sky, the sun and the moon see the deception. They call out his name, the name he thought he had hidden. Their light pierces the illusion like a blade through silk. Svarbhanu. The sound is a thunderclap that shakes heaven. Vishnu turns, and in his eyes burns the mercy of the inevitable. He raises his discus Sudarshana, the wheel of perfect order. Its edges sing with the voice of justice. With one motion, the blade arcs through the air. Svarbhanu smiles. The discus passes through his neck. For a moment, the world is silent. Not in horror, not in grief, but in awe of what is happening. His body falls. His head remains glowing. The nectar has done its work. Death is denied, but life has been rewritten. The severed head floats above the waves, eyes wide, unblinking. It does not scream. It inhales. The wind shudders. The ocean recoils. Around the head, a halo of darkness gathers. Not evil, but consequence. The gods step back. The Asuras stare. Vishnu lowers his hand, solemn. From the edge of heaven, the moon and sun retreat, uneasy. The head speaks. I have tasted what you would not share. It says, voice calm as deep water. I have crossed the line between breath and stillness, and though I am cut, I am whole. You will drift forever, says Vishnu. Your hunger will know no rest. The head inclines slightly, a gesture halfway between bow and defiance. Then I will drift, it says, and when your light grows too proud, I will remind it to remember shadow. The gods do not answer. The ocean continues to churn, slower now, weary from its own creation. The nectar glows, but its sweetness has been tainted with knowing. Even the gods drink it more carefully. Rahu, for that is his name now, rises from the surface like smoke made of thought. His eyes are not wrathful. They are steady, ancient. The wound at his neck shines like a ring of silver fire. The world will learn to call that ring an eclipse. From far below, Aaron watches all of this as though through clear water. The dream bends around him, every sound slowed, every image stretched. When Rahu turns, their eyes meet, across oceans, across epochs. You see now, says the voice that once visited him by the river. You see how hunger is born. Aaron nods, though his dream body trembles. You drank what was forbidden. Rahu's smile is neither guilt nor pride. I drank what was offered to all, but guarded by fear. Fear divides light from shadow. I simply asked what happens when they meet. And the answer? The answer, says Rahu, is eclipse. The dream folds inward. The ocean dims. The churning slows to a whisper, then to the heartbeat beneath sleep. Aaron drifts backward through that silence until the river finds him again. He wakes before dawn, the brass bowl beside him filled with dew. The moon has set, the sky is pale. He sits for a long time, tracing the rim of the bowl with one finger, as though it were the horizon of the world itself. Somewhere in the distance, the temple bell rings once, not in warning, but in remembrance. And Aaron whispers to the empty air, I understand. The river listens, and the dawn accepts his words like a prayer that will one day return as light. Dawn is thin, a thread of silver woven between dream and waking. The river breathes mist, and each reed along its edge hums softly in the morning hush. Aaron sits where he has always sat, between questions and answers, the brass bowl beside him, half filled with dew that catches the newborn sun like fragments of quiet stars. He remembers, not as one remembers a story, but as one recalls a feeling that has no name. The coolness on his brow, the vast voice in the darkness, the shadow that drank light not from hatred but from hunger that wished to understand. The dream has left him, but it has also stayed. It clings to him the way twilight clings to the day that birthed it. Across the river, fishermen are stirring. Nets whisper against the water, and oars murmur in their long language of patience. In the distance, the temple bell calls once, its tone slow and forgiving. The sound ripples through the mist, folding itself into the rhythm of the river. Aaron lifts the bowl and looks into it. For a moment he sees his reflection. A child's face, but older now, the eyes deeper, filled with the echo of what he has seen. Then the image changes. The bowl's surface trembles, not from wind, but from thought. Within its shallow circle, light bends. He sees again the ocean of milk, the mountain, the serpent. He sees the golden pot rising, the nectar pulsing, the blade flashing. He hears Rahu's calm voice, hold without owning, reflect without devouring. The river answers him with a sigh. He dips the bowl into the water, letting it fill. The surface clears, revealing the pale sky mirrored inside. But beneath that reflection, faint and shifting, another light moves. Not the sun, not the moon, but something that waits between them. "What are you showing me?" he whispers. The river does not speak in words. It moves with meaning. The current brushes his hands, circling the bowl, guiding it to stillness. Then, from the depths, a single dark shape rises, small, perfect, round. A shadow passes through the reflection of the sun. An eclipse, born within the bowl. Aaron's breath catches. He looks up. The real sky above him is untouched, bright and blue. Yet in the bowl, the sun is veiled, its gold swallowed by soft darkness. Rahu. The name comes unbidden, and the air stirs. The wind shifts direction, slow and thoughtful. The reeds bow as though acknowledging a guest unseen. "You are watching again," says the voice. Not loud, not near, but everywhere. It folds through the air like smoke through light. Aaron lowers his head. "I didn't mean to call you." "You did not need to," the voice replies. "Once a river learns to listen, it remembers how." He closes his eyes. The memory of the dream rises again. The blade, the separation, the vow. "Why do you return to me?" he asks. "To continue the teaching. I don't understand it yet." "Understanding is slow," says Rahu. "That is why even the stars take their time crossing the sky." The bowl hums in Aaron's hands. The reflection inside it changes once more. The darkness expands, then softens, revealing shapes within the shadow. Trees, mountains, faces. Light and dark are no longer divided. They fold together like breath and silence. "What am I seeing?" "You are seeing what the gods forget," Rahu says. "That shadow is not the enemy of light. It is the pause that lets light see itself." Aaron listens. The river flows. Each sound, each drop, each wave begins to feel like part of a sentence written too slowly to be read all at once. "Then why do they fear you?" he asks. "Because they mistake remembrance for ruin." The voice deepens, spreading through the morning air until even the birds hesitate in their songs. "When I take the light, they cry out, thinking I have destroyed it. But I have only asked it to rest. I do not devour the moon. I remind it that it is not the sun. I remind it that reflection can be more merciful than fire." Aaron opens his eyes. The bowl now holds both sun and shadow in perfect measure, a glowing ring floating upon calm darkness. It looks alive, breathing. He sets it gently on the river's surface. The current takes it, slow and deliberate. Around it, ripples spread outward, touching the reeds, the stones, the world. The ring of light wavers, then steadies. For a moment, it feels as if the entire river has become a single thought. balance. Rahu's voice returns, softer now, like wind on the edge of hearing. Do you know what the gods feared most when they made the nectar? Aaron shakes his head. That mortals might taste it and learn that eternity is not theirs to hoard. He frowns. But you drank it. I did, Rahu replies. And so I learned that even eternity can hunger. Aaron's heart beats faster. Then your hunger never ends. No, Rahu says gently. It learns. Every eclipse is a lesson. I drink, I let go. I drink, I let go. The cycle itself becomes peace. The bowl drifts farther down the river. Aaron watches it until it becomes a spark on the current. When it finally tips and sinks, he does not reach to save it. The river accepts it with a soft sound like a sigh of gratitude. Will I see you again? He asks. You already do, the voice answers. Each time light bends, each time fear softens into wonder. I am there, and so are you. The wind stills, the world holds its breath. Then sound returns, the song of water, the hush of trees, the distant cry of cranes rising toward the morning. Everything feels new yet ancient, simple yet infinite. Aaron stays by the river long after the mist has gone. When he finally stands, his shadow falls beside him, long and true. It stretches toward the east, touching the water's edge, where the reflection of the sun glows faintly within the ripples. He whispers to it, not as to an absence, but to a companion. Then we are the same. The shadow does not move, but he feels it listening. He turns toward the village. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The day begins its ordinary rhythm. Markets, laughter, bells, and yet everything seems gentler, as if the world has learned to walk softer. At the threshold of his home, Aaron's grandmother waits. She smiles as he approaches, her eyes knowing and kind. You watched the sky again, she says. He nods. Did you see the eater? She asks. I saw the teacher. She studies him for a long moment, then places her palm against his chest. Then you saw correctly. He feels her warmth and the faint tremor of her breath. Inside him, the echo of Rahu's voice stirs, not as sound, but as quiet certainty. Hunger is not always a wound. Sometimes it is the road by which understanding travels. As night returns, Aaron sets another brass bowl by the window. The moon rises, perfect and full, unbitten. But he knows when the time comes the shadow will return, and when it does he will not fear it. He will listen, and perhaps, somewhere in the deep corridors between stars, Rahu will listen back. The world turns, the river remembers, and the shadow, gentle, patient, endless, continues its work of teaching the light to rest. Morning came bright and unbroken, yet the quiet within Aaron lingered like a cool thread woven through the day's warmth. The river still whispered its lessons, though the world around him had woken fully. Roosters crowing, vendors calling, wheels creaking against the road. Life moved, and yet beneath the noise there was still that deeper rhythm, patient and wide as shadow. For many days after the dream of Rahu, Aaron found that the world spoke differently. The shimmer of light on the water no longer dazzled him. It conversed. The shade beneath trees felt alive, not empty. Even the cries of the market birds seemed tuned to a chord he could almost name. It was as though every sound, every glint, every silence had discovered its true place. First, he told no one. Some truths must settle like silt before the current can carry them without clouding the stream. But people began to notice. The boy who once sat by the river and watched the moon now lingered by the wells and the courtyards, listening to the talk of farmers and potters, weavers and children. When they quarreled, he did not take sides. He only waited until their voices thinned enough for listening to enter. And when he spoke, his words fell like cool water on heated stone. "The light cannot stand if it does not rest," he said once, when two brothers argued over who would work under the sun and who under the moon. "Let each take his turn with both." The brothers, surprised by the simplicity of it, laughed and agreed, though neither could explain why it felt like truth. At night, his grandmother watched him quietly as he polished the brass bowl. "You are growing strange," she said, though her voice carried no fear. "Perhaps I am growing quieter," he replied. "Quiet can be strange for those who live by noise," she said. "But remember, even silence needs a listener." He nodded, though he understood more than he could say. One afternoon, a storm gathered from the west, thick clouds rising like mountains, the wind turning restless in the palms. People hurried to cover their stalls, to gather clothes, to close shutters. The sky darkened until the fields gleamed like mirrors of dull silver. Children ran home, laughing at the thunder, but there was unease in the laughter, that familiar trembling that comes when the world reminds its makers of their smallness. Aaron stood by the river. The first drops fell, round and heavy. He thought of Rahu, the shadow that drank light not to destroy it, but to make it pause. He thought of hunger as compass, of reflection as mercy. "Show me," he murmured to the clouds. "Teach me how to listen beneath the sun." The rain answered. It began a sound. A low murmur, countless drops striking earth in rhythm too complex for counting. But soon, within that sound, another emerged. A tone beneath tone, a whisper of direction. It was not Rahu's voice exactly, yet it carried the same calm weight. "The sun also has its eclipse," said the whisper, "but its shadow falls within." Aaron looked down at the river. The storm had turned it dark, yet within that darkness lay a strange radiance, as if every drop of rain carried a tiny shard of day. He stepped into the shallows, water curling around his ankles like threads of moving glass. "What does it mean?" he asked softly. "It means light forgets that it too must sleep," the whisper replied. "When day grows proud, the world burns. You must remind it, as I remind the moon, that rest is part of shining." He closed his eyes. The rain fell heavier, drumming upon the water until river and sky became one vast instrument. He lifted his hands, palms upward, and let the drops strike them. Each one was a small lesson in impermanence, born, bright, vanished. And beneath the sound, he heard it again, that low, immense pulse he had felt the night of the eclipse. It moved through the world, through the wind, through his ribs. The breath of balance. When the storm passed, the sky cleared slowly, as though ashamed of its own noise. The last light of afternoon returned, clean, softened, merciful. And in that light, the river glowed gold where the rain had touched it. Aaron walked home drenched but calm. The villagers greeted him with smiles of relief. The storm was fierce, they said. We feared it would take the crops. He only smiled. It gave them rest instead. That night, after supper, his grandmother sat with him at the doorway. Fireflies stitched brief constellations between the reeds. The moon was thin, pale, resting. Tell me, she said, what the river has been whispering to you. Aaron hesitated. It tells me that shadow is not the end of light, that it is the space where light learns kindness. She nodded slowly. Then the gods still speak to those who listen. Maybe the gods are listening too, he said. She laughed softly, but her eyes glimmered with something ancient. And what of the one you call the eater? He looked at the horizon, where faint clouds drifted like thought. He is not the eater anymore. He is the teacher of hunger. The old woman's gaze lingered on him, long and tender. Then may your hunger be gentle. For many nights after, Aaron dreamed not of Rahu's vast shadow but of a quiet figure made of both light and dark, sitting beside him by the river, watching the world with eyes that neither judged nor desired. Together they listened, to the wind's long memory, to the river's laughter, to the silence between the stars. And each time he woke, he found the world slightly softer, as if some invisible thread had been rewoven through it. One morning, the sun rose large and unblemished. The air was clear, the fields dry. Aaron's grandmother pointed to the sky. Today, she said, the sun eats the shadow. See how proud it looks. He smiled faintly. It will learn to share again. And as the day unfolded bright, ordinary, full of small tasks and laughter, Aaron carried the whisper with him, that even beneath the fiercest sun, there is always a place for shade, and even within the deepest shadow, light continues to breathe. The balance held. The world turned. The story waited for its next eclipse. Night returns to the world with a softness only the gods remember. The stars hum faintly in their invisible threads, and the moon hangs low, not full, not empty, but thoughtful. Aaron dreams again, and the dream feels less like departure, more like invitation. The veil between his breath and the sky is thin as silk. He finds himself upon a plain of glass so wide that the stars reflect beneath his feet. The air hums with stillness, and the horizon curves like the edge of a bowl too vast to be held. There, in the distance, stand figures of light and gold, radiant, patient, vast. They are not human, yet they are not strange. They are the gods. They stand in silence around a circle of shadow. The shadow does not move. It breathes. Its rhythm is the rhythm of eclipses, of oceans drawn and released, of hearts learning to rest between beats. Within it, a familiar presence glows faintly, neither form nor absence. Rahu. Aaron approaches. His steps make no sound. He feels the eyes of the divine turn toward him, some curious, some wary, all waiting. From the center, a voice rises, not from Rahu, not from light, but from the space between them. Let there be quiet. The command is not a command. It is a reminder. The gods lower their radiance. One by one they dim, not in defeat, but in reverence. The plane glows less, but breathes more. Then Rahu speaks, his tone low and unhurried. Even gods grow loud. The air hums with stillness, and the horizon curves like the edge of a bowl too vast to be held. There, in the distance, stand figures of light and gold, radiant, patient, vast. They are not human, yet they are not strange. They are the gods. They stand in silence around a circle of shadow. The shadow does not move. It breathes. Its rhythm is the rhythm of eclipses, of oceans drawn and released, of hearts learning to rest between beats. Within it, a familiar presence glows faintly, neither form nor absence. Rahu. Aaron approaches. His steps make no sound. He feels the eyes of the divine turn toward him, some curious, some wary, all waiting. From the center, a voice rises, not from Rahu, not from light, but from the space between them. Let there be quiet. The command is not a command. It is a reminder. The gods lower their radiance. One by one they dim, not in defeat, but in reverence. The plane glows less, but breathes more. Then Rahu speaks, his tone low and unhurried. Even gods grow loud. The oldest of the shining beings answers, voice like chimes on wind. And what would you have us do, Shadowborn? Silence is not our domain. Rahu's laughter is small, a tide against coral. Silence is everyone's domain. You mistake it for absence. But it is the soil from which your own voices rise. Another god, bright as morning, steps forward. You took what was not given. You drank of the nectar meant for order. I drank of truth, Rahu says, and truth does not ask permission to be seen. The words ripple outward. The stars above flicker as though weighing the tone. Aaron feels it in his bones, not as conflict, but as the hum before a storm chooses rain or restraint. The goddess of dawn turns her face toward the moon's dim reflection. You darken our light. I remind it, says Rahu, to be gentle. Aaron steps forward before he realizes it. His voice trembles, yet it carries. He doesn't destroy the moon. He teaches it to rest. The gods turn their gaze upon him, and for an instant, Aaron understands why mortals bow. Their eyes hold galaxies, their breath bends winds, yet they do not scorn him. They listen. The god of the sun inclines his crown of fire. You speak for shadow, child of the river? I speak for balance, Aaron replies. The river holds light by carrying it, not by owning it. Silence follows. Not the cold kind, the fertile kind, the kind that waits for a seed to speak. Rahu lowers his form, vast and serene. The boy has listened. Will you? For the first time the gods hesitate. They who shaped mountains, who sculpted time, seem uncertain. Then the goddess of the moon steps forward, silver and soft. We feared the dark, she says. We named it hunger, but perhaps it was only need. Rahu's voice softens further. Even immortality thirsts. You created light to chase away the unknown. I became the unknown so you would remember to turn back toward it. The god of the sun folds his flames. And if you cease to remind us, then pride will burn the world before its dawn. Rahu answers. And I will return, not to punish but to teach again. The silence thickens until it becomes light. The gods look upon Rahu not as curse, but as mirror. Around them the stars pulse, expanding, contracting, as if the universe itself exhales. Aaron closes his eyes. The hum deepens. He feels the same pulse that once stirred the ocean, that once breathed through his bowl by the river. The same pulse that hums now in his chest. He opens his eyes again and finds the plane changed. The gods are gone. Only Rahu remains, a vast presence dissolving into the fabric of night. His outline fades until he is indistinguishable from the sky. But his voice remains, close and infinite. They have learned for now, he says. But gods forget faster than rivers. Aaron bows. And mortals. Mortals remember through listening, Rahu says. Through dream, through story, through silence shared. He pauses, then adds, That is why I chose you. Aaron looks up. To do what? To remind them. When shadow comes, let them not strike gongs to frighten it away. Let them breathe and know that darkness is not death. It is the breath between lives. The dream ripples. The glass plane melts back into the river. The stars rise beneath the water, then fade. Rahu's voice fades with them, leaving behind only the echo of a heartbeat that belongs to no single being. When Aaron wakes, dawn has not yet broken. His grandmother sleeps near the fire, the bowl resting beside her. He touches it lightly, and it hums once, low and tender. Outside, the horizon glows faintly. The first bird stirs, and in that small, perfect sound, he hears both light and shadow breathing together. He whispers into the quiet, I will remind them. The wind moves through the door, cool and kind, as if in answer. Somewhere beyond the rising sun, the gods listen too, not with fear, but with gratitude. And the sky, balanced between hunger and peace, begins another day. The night before the next eclipse is quiet beyond measure. No dogs bark, no crickets stir. Even the river holds its breath, as though the world has remembered what it once feared and what it has learned to love. Aaron sits beside the water, older now. The brass bowl rests in his lap, its edges worn soft from years of touch. He no longer watches the sky to see what will happen. He watches to listen to how it feels. The moon, nearly full, drifts high and slow. Its light paints the river in silver threads, each one trembling with the patience of waiting. He has told the story many times since the dream, not as warning, not as sermon, but as remembrance. Children gather by his fire to hear about Rahu, the shadow who drank the nectar of the gods and became the teacher of balance. They listen wide-eyed, their small hands cupping imaginary bowls. When the story ends, he tells them the same words every time. Light learns kindness from shadow. Tonight, though, he speaks to no one. The river is his audience, the moon his companion. The air feels thick, full of a quiet that trembles like a heartbeat hidden under layers of calm. And then a shimmer. The moon's edge darkens, soft as breath. A veil slides across its face, not in haste but in ceremony. The first note of shadow hums through the air, and the world bends gently toward silence. Aaron exhales. Welcome back. The voice that answers is faint, but deep enough to move the surface of the river. You have kept the listening well. He smiles. I tried. Rahu's presence unfurls. Not a form, but a feeling. A coolness that moves like thought. A shadow that carries light within it. You have taught them? As much as they could hear. That is enough, Rahu says. Even gods can only learn in small silences. The moon slips further into shadow, becoming a ring of dim fire. Around it, the stars burn brighter, as though they, too, are watching. The river reflects the entire scene, a second sky trembling with devotion. Rahu's voice continues, gentle but vast. I will leave you soon. My work moves where pride sleeps and awakens again. But the breath between us will remain. The breath, Aaron repeats softly. The breath, says Rahu. It is the first sound, the last sound, the song that joins us all. When the world forgets, it will find me there. The river stirs. A wind passes over it, scattering small ripples like laughter. Aaron looks up and sees not fear in the eclipse, but peace. A sky teaching itself how to rest. Will I dream of you again? He asks. Rahu's reply is almost a whisper. You are already dreaming. Aaron closes his eyes. Behind his lids, he sees the ocean of milk once more, vast, luminous, endless. He sees gods and demons side by side, churning the sea of longing. He sees the moment the nectar rose, the flash of the blade, the calm eyes that did not close. And then he sees himself, sitting by the river, listening to both light and dark, unafraid of either. The images dissolve into breath. When he opens his eyes, the eclipse is ending. The shadow retreats with grace, as if bowing before the return of dawn. The moon glows anew, not proud, not untouched, but softened by its own remembrance. Its light spills gently over the river, over the reeds, over Aaron's face. He lifts the bowl one last time. Inside, the moon's reflection shimmers whole again, but he can still see the faint outline of the shadow that once covered it. Both remain inseparable. Thank you, he whispers. The river carries his voice outward. Somewhere beyond, a wind answers. It is not a word, not a command, only the breath of the eclipse itself, moving through everything that listens. The next morning, villagers wake to find Aaron still by the river, eyes closed, a smile resting upon his lips. The brass bowl floats beside him, turning slowly in the current, holding the reflection of the bright morning sky. They do not wake him. They understand. The years that follow call him by many names, the listener, the keeper of the still river, the one who spoke to shadow, but all mean the same thing. He is remembered not for what he said, but for how he waited to hear what the world wanted to say. And sometimes, when the moon darkens, when the wind hushes, when the air grows full of patient trembling, those who listen carefully by the river still hear his voice in the ripple of the current. Hold without owning, reflect without devouring. When fear circles your heart, be the bowl. Then the wind stirs, the shadow passes, and the light returns softer than before. For Rahu still drifts beyond the sky. No longer curse, no longer hunger, but breath. A breath that teaches even the gods that silence is sacred, and listening is eternal. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth.